Hello everyone, my name is Brian McInerney. I'm the hydrologist here at the National Weather Service in Salt Lake City, Utah. This is the extended version of the water supply forecast, and it's February 12th. So let's take a look. So when you look at the last good storm system we had was January 30th, and this feature right here was the cold air that was going to move into Utah. The high pressure is out over the Pacific, and what it did, picked up a lot of moisture and rotated it right in with the cold air coming in, and we did quite well during this storm. Unfortunately, this is the last storm system we've had because now we are dominated as of February 10th when I got this image by a high pressure ridge that has extended itself a bit to the east, but it's really dominating our weather right here in Utah for the most part. There's some good storm systems out over the Pacific, but they're running into this high and then looping up over the top of us and then moving out to the east. So unfortunately, this is in place. This is the main cause of our poor air quality in the valleys and the absence of any storms. So let's take a look at precip anomalies. When you look at December of this year, well, actually this water year, last calendar year, what you see is Utah doing pretty well as far as 300 to 400% in some areas, but mostly it's green, the cool colors, and that's what you want to see. When we compare this to December of the year prior, it's somewhat similar. December was a good month for us, even though we had a very poor water year last year. December is where we got the storms, and the last year's storms came about Christmas time. When you look at January, we see more of the same. But it's important to note that areas around the Uinta Mountains are below average, maybe 70 to 90%, and parts of south central Utah. When you compare that, though, with what we saw last year, they were in bad shape all around Utah, with the exception of maybe some areas of southeastern Utah. But where we have the mountains where we need water supply, those areas were in bad shape for January. When we look at temperatures, when we look at December and January, we see January of this water year. And the thing that catches my attention when I saw this was the demarcation line between east and west. Last year, the west was warm, the east was cool. This year, during December, the east is very, very warm, 10 to 13 degrees above normal, and that's a lot when you look at climate. When you look at the west, things are looking pretty good. You know, normal to cooler than normal. So when you're building a snowpack, you want cold temperatures. When you look at the temperatures from last year, you see the entire country was warmer than normal by about 3 to 5 degrees for the most part. Utah was in the 5 to 7 degree range with that heat. So things are looking better in the west, and this is a direct result of the El Nino pattern. And then when you look at January for temperatures, Utah did well. You look at the Uintas, they're a little bit warmer than you'd like. Hopefully we can keep cold temperatures there. But when you look at January of last year, it was incredibly warm, 7 to 10 degrees above. We were trying to put a snowpack together. Anything we did get melted off. South aspects were gone. Solar radiation was intense, and we lost everything due to that heat last year. This year, not so much. This year's looking better. Let's look at our current snowpack. And we'll do this by basin average. And when you look at the bear, that's that green line, you're at 95% of median. The red line is last year. The blue line is average, so it kind of gives you both. You can see median and average. The y-axis is snow water equivalent. X-axis is time. And you can see we're doing much better. We've had a bit of a lull since that high pressure got here, and we'll see that all the way through the snow. The Weber at 104%. Six Creeks at 98%. Utah Lake at 99%. Duchesne at 89%. And these are average snow tells throughout the entire basin. The upper green up in Wyoming at 92%. You can see they're not doing as well as they were last year. They got some good storms last year. And then Lake Powell, 116 snow tell stations averaged together to give you 102%. And they've been pretty much right on average, right on median for the most part this year. Sevier doing quite well. Southwestern Utah typically does better in a very strong El Nino, and that's what we see here. The Virgin at 145%. So all in all, snowpack's doing quite well. Now we'll get to the actual water supply forecast, and then you see the results of very dry soil conditions underlying the snowpack and low groundwater levels. So when you look at the headwaters of the Bear at Woodruff Narrows inflow, what we see is 82% of average and 99,000 acre feet, and then there's a regulated point going into Bear Lake, which means water is taken out, and this is what it's anticipated to get to by the time everybody takes their shares at 49% of average going into Bear Lake. We move down into the Weber. We'll look at 3 points here. The headwater areas at Oakley is at 85% of average, or 100,000 acre feet. When you look at East Canyon, 78% of average, or 21,000 acre feet. And Pineview Reservoir inflow at 91% of average, or 103% of acre feet. And all those forecasts increase from January, and these are forecasts made by the Colorado Basin River Forecast Center. Now we move over into the Six Creeks area. We'll look at 2 points. Little Cottonwood Creek outflow at 87% of average, or 33,000 acre feet. We move up into City Creek, and this area is not doing nearly as well. It's 71% of average, or 5.5 thousand acre feet. We'll move down into the Utah Lake drainage, where we'll look at 2 points. The the woodland area on the Provo River, the headwater area, is at 85% of average, or 85,000 acre feet. And then farther south in the drainage into Spanish Fork drainage at Castilla at 65% of average, or 45,000 acre feet. They just didn't get the snow a little bit farther south, and that was kind of the line. North of there did well, as we saw in the Upper Provo, but when you get down into the Spanish Fork drainage, not as much. Duchesne River drainage, we'll start with inflow into Strawberry Reservoir, which is at 56% of average, or 40,000 acre feet. Really quite low when you look at how things are, but that's a direct result of the absence of storm activity on the south-facing aspect of the Uinta Mountains. When we look at the headwater areas of Duchesne near Tabiona at 74% of average, there's 80,000 acre feet. And then at Knight's Diversion, we're seeing 79% of average, or 153,000 acre feet. Moving to the Upper Green into Wyoming, what we see there is inflow into Flaming Gorge Reservoir at 70,000 acre feet, or 6.8 million acre feet anticipated to move into there. The Green River down on the town of Green River, 83% of average, or 2.4 million acre feet. Now we'll slide down a little bit farther south. This includes Colorado and the Green River on Lake Powell. And we'll start the first one with the outflow out of Colorado near the town of Cisco at 101% of average, 4.5 million acre feet, looking quite nice. Then we'll move down into the actual inflow into Lake Powell. 94% of average is the forecast. That forecast has increased at 6.7 million acre feet. Now we'll slide over to the west to the severe drainage. This drainage flows south to north. We'll look at the headwater of Hatch. 115% of average, or 55,000 acre feet. And then a little bit farther downstream at the Marysvale at Paiute Reservoir at 126% at 82,000 acre feet. Then we move over into the Virgin, which has had abysmal water supply conditions for the past 4 years, and we see a vast improvement. The headwater areas at Virgin is at 117% of average, 68,000 acre feet. And then we look at the outflow at Littlefield, 120% of average, or 78,000 acre feet. And when we looked at this last year, we were down near record levels last year. It was quite depressing. So there you have it. There's the contact info for me. Give me a call. Send me an email. Anything else you'd like to hear from? Any other way you'd like to package this data? Information's looking quite improved from last year, so we'll go with that. Happy news. Thanks for listening.